After his confession, Chris Watts led investigators to the very place where he had hidden the bodies of his wife and 2 young daughters. It was a desolate, remote oil work site, and what they found there was the grim, undeniable truth. Shanann, Watts, Bella, and Celeste were all gone. There was no longer any room for doubt, no shred of hope to cling to. The search was over, but the nightmare had just begun. Immediately following this horrific discovery, Chris Watts was formally arrested. He was charged with multiple counts of first-degree murder, along with other charges related to the crime. As the official investigation moved forward and eventually concluded, the full chilling timeline of events became crystal clear. This wasn't a crime of sudden, uncontrollable anger as he had initially tried to claim. It was calculated. It was planned. He had thought about it, and he had followed through. What came after was a web of repeated, elaborate lies, delivered with a calm demeanor that baffled everyone who watched. On November 6, 2018, in a move that surprised many, Chris Watts pleaded guilty to all charges against him. This plea deal meant there would be no lengthy public trial. The families were spared the agony of hearing every graphic detail replayed in a courtroom. Just a few weeks later, on November 19th, he was sentenced. The judge handed down 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole, 1 for each person he murdered, plus an additional 48 years. For the unlawful termination of his wife's pregnancy and 36 years for tampering with the deceased bodies. The message was clear. He would never be a free man again. The case sent shockwaves not just across the United States, but around the entire world. People were horrified by the crime itself, but what was perhaps even more disturbing was the man who committed it. On the surface, Chris Watts was the picture of an ordinary, happy family man. He had a nice house, a beautiful wife, adorable children, and a stable job. He was the guy next door. This stark contrast between his public image and his private actions is what made the case so deeply unsettling for so many. How could someone who seemed so normal be capable of such an evil act? In the years since, criminal psychologists and behavioral experts have extensively analyzed Chris Watts' behavior, both before and after the murders. They've pointed to a profound emotional detachment, a complete inability to connect with the gravity of his actions. His televised appeals for his family's return, once seen as the pleas of a desperate husband, were re-examined. Experts noted the absence of genuine grief or panic. Instead, they saw a performance, an attempt to control the narrative and deceive the public. His body language, his choice of words, his calm coolness, under pressure at all, pointed to a person who was not experiencing genuine remorse, but rather the stress of maintaining a lie. This case has now become a prominent case study in criminal psychology and law enforcement training. It's a textbook example of how deception reveals itself. Lies aren't just spoken or acted out. They create inconsistencies in a story that eventually cause it to crumble. Investigators are trained to look for these behavioral red flags, the subtle cues that suggest a person isn't telling the truth. The Chris Watts case demonstrated this in a very public and dramatic way. His story changed multiple times, and each version fell apart under the slightest scrutiny. Technology also played a massive, undeniable role in bringing the truth to light. Without it, the investigation might have taken a very different path. A neighbor's security camera captured crucial footage of Chris backing his truck into the garage on the morning of the murders, contradicting his story. His and Shanann's cell phone records, including text messages and location data, created a digital footprint that investigators could follow. His online activity, including his communications with his mistress, painted a clear picture of his motive in his double life. Chris Watts likely believed he could simply delete his old life and start a new one. But in our modern world, everything leaves a trace. He thought he was erasing his past, but instead, technology was documenting his every move, creating an irrefutable record of his guilt. The Chris Watts case remains a powerful and tragic reminder of several important truths. It shows us that evil can wear a very ordinary mask. It reminds us that truth, no matter how deeply it's buried, has a way of leaving evidence. Behavior tells its own story, often more honestly than words ever can. And deception, no matter how carefully constructed, always collapses under its own weight in the end. This case is presented for educational purposes. to help us better understand the complexities of criminal behavior. The methods used to uncover the truth and the devastating impact these acts have on families and communities. Thank you for watching. If you found this analysis insightful, please consider subscribing for more deep dives into important cases.